Hello, it is Monday, August 22nd, 2022. It is not the year 2021, as I apparently said yesterday. Sorry about that. I'm Chris Remo, and welcome back to the New York Times Crossword Daily Solve. It's a Monday puzzle today, so it should be a much quicker solve than we had yesterday with that huge but very impressive Sunday grid. And this accurately dated edition of the Daily Solve has been brought to us by Kathleen Quinn, Victoria Rojishka, and, as always, the inestimable Hood Monster, the invaluable Timothy Mark, and the indomitable Shoalmaster. So thank you so much to the five of them, benefactors of the Daily Solve Patreon campaign. If you'd like to join their ranks and get the Daily Solve Let's Check the Crosses mug, you can find that at patreon.com/dailysolve. And there's a link in the description field underneath the video. Of course, if you back the campaign at any level, you'll get access to all of the bonus videos that have gone up on the channel to date, as well as the new ones that go up each week. And thank you to everybody who has backed the Patreon campaign at any level. I do very much appreciate it. It helps this series stay sustainable for me. And that does mean a lot, so thank you. And finally, do subscribe to the channel if you've been enjoying it. We're a few hundred away from 10,000 subscribers at this point. I think that'll probably take several more weeks to reach. I don't think we're quite on the verge of it, but we're getting there. It's in sight. 10,000's in sight, and that feels like a big, round, auspicious number. And I said finally, but actually one more thing. There is the Daily Solve Discord chat server, and you can join that to communicate with other members of this community. There's a link in the description field to that as well. So let's get on to the puzzle. This is, as stated, a Monday puzzle. It was constructed by Doug Bernickel, excuse me, Doug Bernickel and Joachim Bernickel. And this is a married couple. I think a debut puzzle for Doug, but not for Joachim, who has constructed some 75 puzzles. Extremely experienced New York Times crossword constructor, pairing up with her spouse for his debut. So let's see how that goes. Oh, it was edited, of course, by Will Shorts. Now let's start solving. Bird with keen binocular vision. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. An owl, maybe, in 3? Extra NBA periods for shorts. Okay, that could be overtimes, OTs, in a basketball game. So maybe that is an owl. Let's check the crosses. Whoops. What am I doing? Clobber but good. I don't know, to wail on someone, to... I'm not sure. Language spoken in Bangkok would be Thai. And Black Forest ham and cold cut combo for 2. Those look like maybe sandwich types. Scientific workplaces. Well, those would be labs. Oh, maybe submarine sandwiches or Subway. Maybe Subway, the brand. Sandwich brand. Okay, Subway sandwiches does fit there, actually. So interesting. So I wonder what that's surely this is going to be a theme answer. I wonder what that will end up being. Could be something around the usage of S. I don't know. Clobber but good could be whoop, I think, in a sort of informal speech, and then, which makes sense because clobber but good is also clobber but good. That's a very kind of informal way of saying clobber someone hard. Bible book with 150 sacred poems. That would be Psalms, surely. And then here we have figure out. You could suss something out, figure it out. That's what we have to do repeatedly, solving the crossword. A liqueur, Tia Maria is a liqueur. So there we go. And a unit of bacon or cloth. You could have a strip of bacon or a strip of cloth. And competed in a 10K. So a 10K is a race, a foot race length. So you competed in a 10K, you ran. And French blank, region east of Suriname would be French Guiana in South America. And not mainstream, indie perhaps? Independent or indie music, indie film, that kind of thing. Received quick cash for, in a way. If you pawned something at a pawn shop, pawned something at a pawn shop, you traded it for cash quickly. And food in a hard or soft shell. It could be a taco. Really should be in a soft shell, but I know people like hard shell tacos as well. Throw away, you toss something, throw it away. And the first part of a play would be Act 1. Ellen Blank, first Hispanic woman in space. So interesting. Ochoa, maybe? Back of a boat, the stern of a boat. And Oscar winner Spacek is Sissy Spacek. Blank port in a storm. Any port in a storm, they say. It's when you're in trouble. Any refuge will do. Away from the sun could be indoors. Okay, so this was Ellen Ochoa. I think I've seen that name before. And then, so right, away from the sun is indoors, and then attachment to a dog collar informally. An ID tag, maybe, an identification tag. If something is sugary, it is sweet. And a favorite or prodigal one could be the favorite son or the prodigal son. So the favorite, these are expressions, the second of which is drawn from the biblical story of the prodigal son. I don't know if favorite son has a specific origin as some kind of fable. I'm not really sure. But anyway, it's a phrase. Athlete on the pommel horse or parallel bars. Well, that sounds like a gymnast to me. And blank gobi, curry dish, aloo gobi. There we go. So aloo is potato, right? And then I told you so. I was right. I was right, you must say. Region encompassing a city and its suburbs, right? A metro area. So subway and metro. So two terms used to describe underground rail networks, the subway or the metro. Funny thing about the reason we use the phrase metro. So London, here in London, was the site of the first underground railway, which many people know, and it originated as the whole underground system originated as independent companies all building these underground railroads and competing against one another. And the original one was the Metropolitan Railway, and that was the name of the line, and that was the name of the company that constructed it. And because it was the first one, that terminology, the Metropolitan Railway, ended up sort of spreading to other countries that built their own underground railway, where underground railways were built in other countries. And so that's why in Paris and Moscow and other places you have the metro. Although, ironically, in London, we don't call it the metro because that's just one of the lines. It's the tube. Anyway, I always thought that was really interesting. Just one of those sort of arbitrary quirks of history. Honoree on the third Sunday in June is a dad. That must be Father's Day. And story that's not to be believed is a myth, a mythical tale. Continental currency would be the euro, the continent of Europe. I guess those that are in the Eurozone, anyway. Blank Gagarin, first person in space. Yuri Gagarin, famously the first person in space. And a pre-calc class could be trig for trigonometry. Commotion could be, what? Quartet -1 is a trio. So 3 members of a group rather than 4. And then commotion, hoo-ha, I see. All right, tool for boring holes is what? Spot for a soak is a tub, maybe? Bathtub, simple as that. Cube or sphere, either one of those is a shape. And of course, because this is an or clue, we're only referring to a cube or a sphere, not a cube and a sphere. So we're referring to one of them. So this will be a singular answer, even though there are 2 shapes listed in the clue. Aussie, maybe it's not a shape. So anyway, same principle applies. It's a solid. So cube or sphere are examples of solids. Anyway, sorry, the same point about the or applies. Aussie hoppers are kangaroos. So there we go. And that's what took me off to that solid bit. So chooses is selects, and then keeps the beat with one's feet, say, is to toe tap. To stay at home during, as a hurricane. That's a funny way to phrase it. So stay at home during something is to wait something out. So you will wait out a hurricane. To clean vigorously is to scour something with a brush, maybe. And to smear on as makeup is to daub it on. We have a lot of these ases in this puzzle. One size fits all hosiery. Oh, here we go. Here's the tube bit. So tube socks, maybe. And so now we have our subway, our metro, and our tube. 3 ways to refer to underground railways. Although I think I mean, subway and metro are certainly generic terms. Or tube, I think, is only really used. I think it's really only used here in London, but I could be wrong about that. Let me know if there's another metro area that uses the phrase tube refer to its underground railway. Anyway, orchestral introduction in a musical or opera could be a prelude, perhaps. And Hall of Fame QB Dawson, right? This has come up in the crossword several times before. Len, I think. Is it Len or Lou? I think it's Len. Medieval worker would be a serf. And shucks. Looks like doggone it, maybe. There we go, yeah. Sort of an old-timey way of saying, shucks, darn it. Must, informally. If you must do something, you've got to do it, I think is probably the answer. With that informally is why I suspect it's gotta rather than got to. Soft mineral talc is an example of a soft mineral, and an arduous journey is a trek. Thumbs up votes are ayes or nay, and then actor Oldman, Gary Oldman, and an utter delight would be glee. So I think we've seen all the clues in there. Let's keep going. Free blank bird, free as a bird. And a hotel customer is, of course, a guest. Nelson, who wrote Long Walk to Freedom, that would be the great Nelson Mandela. And Habitat for Humanity. Earth, I suppose. Right, it's one of those deceptively simple clues. Humanity lives on Earth, and presumably nowhere else. Tools for... oh, okay, did I read that as tools before? I just read that as tools for a moment. Anyway, it's a tool, singular tool for boring holes is an auger. There you go, yeah. You can bore a hole with an auger, sort of. It's a tool for that purpose. And if something sticks out, it bulges. I've got it. You might cry, Eureka! Eureka, I've found it. And if something finishes up, it ends. America's Got Talent judge Heidi Klum, I've heard of. She was famous for something in the 1990s. I don't really remember what. She related to the O.J. Simpson case? Boy, I just have no idea. Anyway, I've heard the name, and I think this is probably the answer. Rolaide's competitor is Tums, which is, I think, for heartburn, maybe? And then Snowballs it's a medication brand. Sorry, I should have specified that. Snowballs in a snowball fight. Those are your arms, I suppose. You're armed with snowballs. Is that the answer? This doesn't look right. Non-mainstream productions like Pink Flamingos and Eraserhead, underground films, sort of like indie films from earlier. Okay, so there's our final thematic bit. So this isn't... Oh, it's ammo. Ammo. Okay, right. Fair enough. I think arms maybe would have worked as well, but ammo is probably better. Okay, so underground films. So what is Pink Flamingos? Is that John Waters? And Eraserhead is David Lynch. I think. I'm sorry if Pink Flamingos, if I'm wrong about that. So Cause to Chuckle. Oh, and right, of course. So underground is our other way of referring to an underground railroad, of course, the underground. So, I mean, in London, you'd say the tube or the underground. Those are sort of synonyms for one another. And actually, excuse me, I don't think I'm offhand familiar with other metro areas that use the underground as, which is the official name for the London Underground. So yeah, interesting. I associate both tube and underground with London's system, and then the subway, for instance, the New York subway, and metro, like the Paris metro, with many other locations. Metro and subway, both extremely commonly used. Tube and underground, I think of as being very London-specific, but I could absolutely be wrong about that. So please let me know if I am. But anyway, a nice theme, a theme that certainly these are constructors after my own heart. I am a massive, massive public transport proponent. I am extremely in favor of public transport and got rid of my car almost a decade ago, actually, at this point. Anyway, Cause to Chuckle is to amuse somebody, and Christmas List Keeper is Santa. Keeps two of them, in fact, right? Range from Venezuela to Chile would be the Andes Mountains, and like early morning grass is dewy. Goulash or gumbo, either one of those, this is an or clue, either one of those is an example of a stew. And child's play, you might say, this is in quotation marks, which means the answer will also be an exclamation. So if you were to say child's play, you could just as easily say easy. This puzzle was no challenge at all. Online brokerage pioneer, E-Trade, electronic stock trading, I guess. And then, well, not I guess, that is in fact what it is. I don't know why I said I guessed there. That was strange. Gold in Guadalajara would be oro for gold. Is that masculine or feminine? Oro or aura? Bowling alley. It is masculine. Bowling alley rentals are shoes. You could rent shoes at a bowling alley if you don't have your own bowling shoes, which I suspect most people don't. I certainly don't. Dubai's country for short is the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. And then finally, bartender on The Simpsons is Mo, the character Mo, and the opposite of North by Northwest is a very straightforward South by Southeast. There we go. And look at that, we finished with a palindromic time of 1331. So yeah, there we go. A nice, simple theme. It's a good, fittingly simple theme for a Monday puzzle. We have our subway as part of Subway sandwiches, our metro as part of a metro area, our tube as part of tube socks, and our underground as part of underground films. So there we have it. And no reveal. I don't think there's any revealer in this puzzle. Not necessary. We can see what links these clues together, so we don't really need an answer that's explaining what's going on. And I am always happy to think about public transport systems. I hope you are as well. And let me know if I was missing any context about other systems worldwide, particularly regarding the usage of the terms tube and underground. Because I'm very curious. But anyway, there we have it. And other than that, I think a fairly straightforward Monday. Not necessarily the most, maybe not the absolute easiest Monday we've ever encountered, but I think definitely well within the intended Monday challenge level. So a good, solid puzzle and a nice debut for this pair, this married pair of constructors, even though one of them is obviously far from a debut. And now, let's discuss some clues from yesterday's puzzle. There were many. That's the other side of the Monday puzzle. The puzzle itself usually solves quickly, but then it does take a while to get through the extra clues because Sunday is long. All right. So Sam, aka Frisco17, who's one of our frequent constructors in the Constructors Corner channel on the Daily Solve Discord chat server, whose puzzles I solve on video for the Patreon. Anyway. Sam, aka Frisco17, says, points out, yes, this was one of the New York Times occasional themeless Sunday puzzle yesterday. And Sam points out the title, which was it Stacking Up, alludes to the giant stack of mostly debut entries in the middle of the grid. It's impressive. This puzzle actually sets a record for the lowest word count in a Sunday puzzle of only 120 words. That is quite incredible, actually. And that definitely reinforces my observation yesterday that we didn't have very many black cells. We had lots of long answers. So essentially, the fewer the clues in a puzzle, that means the more of the puzzle is being taken up by the answers themselves because they're being broken up by fewer black cells into fewer words, if you see what I mean. So the answers will be longer and they will be denser. And that is quite an impressive feat of construction. Anyway, Sam has a whole pile of corrections and observations for me here, so I'll try and get through these quickly. I pronounced the film Lilo and Stitch. I pronounced Lilo as Lilo, which I guess is, I guess I was pronouncing it like the term for the outdoor pool, which I think is largely specific to the UK and other European countries. But anyway, it's pronounced Lilo. Sorry about that. I have seen that film, so I guess my brain just overwrote the name with the generic noun. And then, let's see. So some of these are not necessarily corrections. Let's see. Kangaroo rats are small North American rodents that jump, not unlike kangaroos. That must be why they're called that. Also, they're super cute. So I don't actually think I know kangaroo rats. So thanks for that, Sam. I'll have to look them up. Sam also points out neopronouns, which I was wondering yesterday. I was saying, did that appear in a New York Times crossword? I think maybe it did, but I wasn't sure. And Sam confirms, yes, it has appeared in the New York Times before. And Sam goes on, my friend Ada Nicole, who is super cool, go check out her blog and Patreon, clued neo as prefix for pronouns in her most recent puzzle in the paper. And now that you say that, I do remember that, and I certainly recognize the name Ada Nicole has solved several of her puzzles for the New York Times. So very nice. And then finally, Sam points out, Beggar's Holiday is a musical based on John Gay's The Beggar's Opera. Its music was composed by Duke Ellington. Now that is interesting, and I will definitely have to check that out, so thank you. Okay, Michael Lister points out, the very same Juan Soto, the baseball player, who appeared in also appeared in one of the New York Times crosswords earlier in the week. I must have completely forgotten that. He was recently traded from the Washington Nationals to the San Diego Padres and will probably be one of the stars of the MLB over the next decade. And then Bradley replies to say, yes, his name might be worth committing to memory since he's only 23 years old and will be likely be a big star for a long time. Then some more details about his terms. And Bradley says he certainly has potential to be one of the highest paid athletes in history. Wow. Okay, definitely someone to commit to memory, Juan Soto. Jason Dietz points out that Pierre, well, I pronounced it Pierre, South Dakota, and, well, points out that it's the capital of South Dakota, which I couldn't quite remember. I thought it was one of the Dakotas, but I couldn't bring it to mind. Anyway, population of just over 14,000, so it was the second least populated U.S. state capital. And then Laura Sexton says it's pronounced Pierre by the locals, so Pierre, South Dakota. So there we go. Much the same as what you might think is Montpellier being pronounced as Montpelier, which that one I did know, and I think I did pronounce correctly yesterday, or whenever it was. Finally, Michael Jones says, I noticed you missed reviewing MAV after filling in its crosses, thinking it was possibly Cav beforehand. I was thinking maybe it refers to the Cavaliers. In fact, it referred to the Mavericks. Dirk Nowitzki was the star player and face of the Dallas Mavericks, the Mavs, NBA franchise for the majority of the 2000s and 2010s. Thank you for that. I think it will shock everybody when I point out I didn't know that, so thank you. And not finally, no, there's even more. 666 Evil Badgers says, these elements are listed together for good reason. Ytterbium, yttrium, terbium, and erbium are all named after the village of Ytterby in Sweden. I'm sure I've just made a complete mess of all of those pronunciations. Several other elements were also first discovered in minerals sourced from the mines there as well, such as holmium, named after Stockholm, and scandium, named after Scandinavia. That is quite some claim to fame for that Swedish village. Wow. That is very interesting. Thank you. I had always wondered why those. I had assumed that was some kind of scientific prefix, but that's really interesting they all come from, they're all adaptations of the name of the same village in Sweden. That is very fascinating. And finally, truly finally in this case, Ali Moss points out, there was one clue you seem to miss. 100 down, word with hot or headed. The answer was red, which you got from crosses. Didn't go back to. Glad to have the daily solve as part of my everyday routine. Well, thank you, Ali, and thank you for the correction. And I'm glad to have it as part of my routine as well. So there we go. There was our marathon tour through clues from yesterday's puzzle. I'm sure there were others. I'm sorry if I missed yours. Those Sunday roundups are always enormous. I did read them all, but I usually just take the ones that are in which I was most in need of correction, I suppose. Anyway, that's that for today's video. I'll be back tomorrow for a Tuesday puzzle. Should be another relatively straightforward, approachable puzzle with a fairly simple theme, and I hope you'll join me for that. Until then, please do have an excellent remainder of your Monday. Take care.